Hey folks, it is Dennis Gray and this is show number 146 of the Australian Rock Show. Thank you again for listening in. However you listen in, we appreciate your ongoing support of the podcast. Now, for those of you out there who were readers of our fanzine, which we printed in the 90s, called Vicious Kitten, listen up. One band who we used to champion back then were the Trash Brats, who hailed from Detroit. My brother and I loved them. We wrote to them, reviewed them, and if my memory is correct, we got them on the compilation we released 20-odd years back called Rock and Roll War as well. Now, over a 15-year period, the band blended catchy glam punk tunage with large amounts of Motor City sneer, resulting in a large and loyal following. Now, much of that Trash Brats' distinctive sound was due in part to guitarist Ricky Rat, a guy who's always had the ability to write memorable tunes with jukebox sensibilities. Since the demise of the Trash Brats, Ricky has carved out a solo career, releasing several singles along the way and a highly acclaimed album from 2012 titled Songs in C Major Love. He continues to record and perform with the great Kevin Kay and, as many of you may know, did time in the reunited Dead Boys a few years back as well. Be in no doubt, folks, Ricky Rat is the real rock and roll deal. He's still out there flying the flag and has a brand new album in the works as well. That was something which we spoke to Ricky about when we got him on the phone a few days back. We also chatted a lot about the Trash Brats and also looked over his recent single, which is titled She Feels Like a Good Thing. We will get to the interview with Ricky after a tune, and this one seems quite appropriate. It's the B-side of his new single, originally recorded by the Rockets. This is Ricky Rat with Born in Detroit.
Hello.
Hey, Ricky Rat. It's Dennis from the Australian Rock Show. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Very well. Okay, so the purpose of our chat today is the release of your recent 7-inch titled She Feels Like a Good Thing, which I just love. We will get to that along with your current day activities. Ricky, I would say that although many of our long-time listeners are aware of you and the Trash Brats, there may be some who aren't, so I thought we may also chat a little about your musical journey and your early days as well, maybe explore some of your back catalogue after we're done as well. Now,
sure.
Just going on from that, we kicked off this show with the B-side of the recent single Born in Detroit, which I thought was an appropriate way to start. Born in the city where they make the cars, born in Detroit, you know I'm going to be a star. Great line. And that is a wonderful interpretation of the 1982 track by the Rockets. I guess a large part of who you are, Ricky, is wrapped up in that Jim McCarty song, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I know the Rockets weren't as well known in a lot of even other states, let alone other countries outside of the Detroit area. But growing up in Detroit, and for our age group, the Rockets were huge. This is something some of us heard when we were younger, even before MC5 or Stooges and those type of bands, because those type of bands didn't really have radio hits. And the Rockets had some huge radio hits in Detroit. So along with bands like Romantics, that was like the first, it's just kind of in our blood here growing up with that. And then, of course, you add in all those other groups too, and it's like this, that Detroit style, that attitude, it just kind of goes through all these different groups, different songs.
So you were raised on bands like the Rockets. It makes me want to ask, what was it like for you as a kid growing up in Detroit? Were you into football, cars, buying records, that kind of thing?
Yeah, the music thing here was, like a lot of people can imagine, it was really strong. So the music, it was always in the background here, and it was always Detroit rooted. Growing up with like our parents listening to Motown and Mitch Ryder and some of the the older folks from that back then, and as we know, it continued through the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. So it was always a Detroit pride, like we'd be listening to the radio and there was these great hits by whatever bands that we enjoyed, but then there'd be all these Detroit people that were the ones also putting the city on the map. So so music was always in the background here. I think most people would probably say that for their lives here, whether or not they're musicians or not, just no matter what they do. And Detroit's always been obviously the very tough blue-collar type town. So they were the type of people that they work hard all week, and so when it was his show, they want a show. You know what I mean? They want people to play good, look good, put on a show, and so that definitely had a very big influence on myself and the Brats and a lot of other people I know, because you couldn't just go out there and be kind of half-ass about it. You know, people expected more here. So that was a good thing. That was one good thing about growing up here for the music end of it.
I know that you dig the Romantics and have played out with Mike Skill. They had great success here in Australia back in 1980, and their single, What I Like About You, went to number 2 and is still in high rotation here on golden oldie stations. I mean, my brother and I bought that 45 back then, as did many other kids. You'll have to ask Mike about his memories of their 1980 Australian tour. I'm sure they had a blast.
Yeah. We'll definitely have to ask him about that. I didn't realize the single chart is that high there. Actually, when it first came out here in the States back then, it really didn't become the iconic, tune till years later, really. I think it was bigger in other countries than maybe even the States, but as we know, that such a wonderful song that it is really standing the test of time. And to me, that opening riff, I still get goosebumps from that. I mean, to me, that's up there with the best stuff from the Stooges or anybody else, where people talk about classic Detroit rock and roll or these riffs or these songs. And I got to tell you, it's been pretty exciting to be able to play with Mike, to be side by side here with the guy that wrote that riff, wrote that song. And it still resonates with people. I mean, it's amazing. As you yourself know, it's like that song has lasted for for how many decades now, and then, again, through all different countries too. It wasn't just a U.S. hit or something.
Now, I know that you and I share a love of Kiss, who in many ways were your gateway into music, hugely influential, and I do recall you telling me you were at Tiger Stadium in '96. Did you stay loyal to that band during the non-makeup years, or you'd moved on to other bands by then?
Well, my age, the age I was being into Kiss, I was definitely like that younger little kid kind of thing. Yeah. Getting into them. Like, I got Destroyer, I was 8 years old. And joined the Kiss Army. I was, joining the Kiss Army was $5 US bucks to join, and you get a big package of stuff. Anyways, by the time they were hitting Dynasty and, Unmasked, I was becoming a teenager. And so at that time, they were kind of losing me. Even though since then I love those records now, but they were losing me, and I was becoming a teenager. So it's like these other harder bands coming in, like the Van Halens and all that were pretty exciting for 13-year-old boy. So I kind of went away from them for a few years, and then I tried to kind of like them in the '80s. Like I saw them on the Lick It Up tour. I saw them on the Animalize tour. But it was, I was trying, you know what I mean? I was really trying to give it the, this is my, one of my favorite childhood bands. And I just, that stuff never really stuck for me, where I'd never go back and listen to any of that. And it's not like in some purist way, because, I know Kiss fans are pretty hardcore. Yeah. But, no, I guess I really prefer just that first smack of albums, really. And even now it's like, I'm not going to knock anybody that wants to go see, the way the band is now. But, I myself personally find it a little goofy that they dress the other guys in their makeup and all that. But, hey, if people are going to go and have a good time with that, that's fine, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of people who still enjoy it. But let's switch back. Let's switch back to the recent release. Performing on this single are a couple of band members from your Rat Pack lineup. Laura Mendoza on bass and Joe Leone on drums, and the stomping piano on Born in Detroit is courtesy of Jimmy Bones Trombley, whose recording history is tied up with guys like Kid Rock, among others. Were these new recordings born out of, the frustration maybe of being in lockdown for so much of last year? Yeah, luckily, through some of that lockdown, me and Joe, who plays drums, and Laura, who plays bass, we were still able to play a little bit, because we also have a cover band here we do in Detroit, which is, helps pay the bills. It's a lot of fun. We play basically, 70s, 70s, early 80s music. And it was kind of up and down here with the lockdown. So there was times where things were open, but it was kind of limited, how many people could come in. So we kind of kept playing a little bit. And then, the idea of the single came together, and Jim at I-94 Recordings was all up for, let's do a new single. So we basically went down to Chicago and with some friends and recorded in a weekend that single, and then had Jimmy Bones put down his fantastic piano on it. And so it was nice to be able to have something, like we said, I guess, in a creative end too, to keep us moving forward during all these weird times, But for that, for Born in Detroit especially, the first person I thought of for piano was Jimmy Bones. He's, to me, the essential, the number one Detroit rocker, piano player, organ, whatever. I mean, he has the perfect feel. He's rooted in all the good stuff, and he actually played on the Trash Brats album Out of the Closet. He played 2 or 3 songs on that back in the day. So we've been friends through the years through various bands, and I just thought his touch to that song really added a lot.
You know what? Why don't we crank She Feels Like a Good Thing? It's been buzzing around my head for the past couple of days, and I want our listeners to check it out. Ricky, on the fly, can I get you to please intro your most recent single?
Yes, this is my new single that's available on I-94 Recordings. This is the A side. This is called She Feels Like a Good Thing.
Now, I just mentioned last year's lockdown when during the pandemic you did something pretty cool, which I want you to share. You posted a video of a song each day for a whopping 150 days in a row. Man, that's a mighty effort. And I watched several of them. I assume it started out as something to do and then took on a life of its own.
Yeah. And actually the actual figure was, it was a weird number when I finally kind of cut it off. It was like 162 or 164.
Okay.
When I finally just kind of, a combination of running out of steam, plus the lockdown was letting up and it could, go back to doing gigs. But yeah, I originally I was influenced by a few friends of mine. I saw that did that in the very early days of the lockdown. First one being my friend Lester over in Italy, who we've shared stages with our bands over the years. Some of the Kevin K tours and whatnot. Italy was hit really hard, if we all remember, at the beginning, when everything was going down. And he was one of the first ones I saw doing it, like where, I'd go on to Facebook and there he is with his acoustic guitar singing a song, and he was calling them like whatever, quarantine songs or whatever. Then I saw my friend Tuck Smith from The Biters. He was doing some really good ones. And so then I was like, wow, this is really cool. I mean, instead of people being real down or negative about what everything that's going on, let's, it's kind of like, let's use that technology, like, hey, we can all make good videos on our phones. And I thought, well, hell, maybe some people enjoy if I do a few, And one thing led to another where people were really enjoying it. And then it did turn into kind of a challenge where it was like, wow, I kind of don't want to break the streak. So, it was kind of like, that was a cool thing for me to keep me moving, because obviously it's not like I knew all these songs. So it was like learning new songs, like doing homework, and then, setting up and doing a video and trying to make things still look good on the fly and sound good. And, I mean, I was almost like, well, if people are enjoying them and they're not sick of me yet, I'll keep going, because this is really good for me and for my mental health. And it seemed like a lot of people, it helped them through some of those days too, and they really enjoyed it. So it turned into, just quite the project over the years. But it was great because it gave me an excuse to even learn some of these songs that I've always been favorites of mine, but I didn't know how to play them. So it was like, as a songwriter, that's always a good lesson, because no matter how many chords and scales and all that, theory, you can go back and you learn a song that you just love, and you're like, God, what makes this song so cool, or what makes it hooky, or what's, how do the lyrics fit with this melody? And so it was a giant, kind of like giant lesson for me too. So that kept me really sane during the craziest times, and everybody starts fighting about, the political ends of COVID and everything else. It was like, no, let's keep the music. Music seems to keep people, on a pretty good level.
Yeah.
And, we can argue about it too, but usually it's in a fun way, like a geeky way, like my favorite album by this artist is this one and yours is this one. But yeah, overall, I think music brings people together more than it pulls them apart. And, it was like once the light was at the end of the tunnel and to kind of get back to gigging and life was kind of coming out of it, that's kind of when I fell back off it. Like, okay, we're kind of going back into life now. But I'm not ruling out, doing those again, like even as we go into like winter time here in the States and things are quiet and, we're still up and down with COVID too, of course. And, I don't rule out maybe doing some more of those, just again, for myself and to entertain others.
I'll have to send you a request list.
Hey, yeah, please do, because I like that too, because it, if you've seen some of the songs I did, I mean, obviously it's, all of us that are big music fans, it's all over the place too. So it's not, the same 10 groups that some people might expect from some of us as artists to play. I mean, I was all over the place. It's kind of whatever mood I was in that day or week.
Before we move on, I do wish to mention that the recent single is out via I-94 Recordings. They've been doing some great releases of late, including a re-release last year on vinyl of the Trash Brats debut album from 1990, and also the new 7-inch from your old friend and voice of the Trash Brats, Brian McCarty, Hamtramck Jukebox, which I note you play lead guitar on.
Yes, I did lead guitar, and I sang a few backing vocals in there with him too, and it was a great time because it's a very nostalgic song for us. And, besides myself being mentioned in the song, some of our other old dear friends are mentioned, and it's a very, it's kind of a heavy song in a lot of ways for all of us that know the time period that Brian wrote about. So I was very honored and happy and moved to be, that Brian asked me to be a part of it, because I thought he really captured the spirit of the old days here of Hamtramck and Lily's Bar, which that's what the song was written about.
And the B-side, I note, of Brian's new release is a take of Stevie Wonder's A Place in the Sun. So in the same vein as your release, the theme of the singles coming out from I-94 at the moment, I read, is a new original track on the A side and a cover of a Detroit artist on the flip side. That's a cool idea. I dig that. Yeah,
that was totally Jim's idea, and that's one of the things he likes to keep themed with these singles. And of course, he's trying to encourage the, not telling bands what to do, but trying to encourage them to, obviously don't just do like an obvious MC5 song or, whatever. Because there's just so many, when you think about it, there's so many Detroit songs here that, so many people have not heard. So there's a lot of underground artists or hard to find artists. And this might be a good way of people, being able to hear those artists things. Because they'll be like, wow, I really like that B-side. Who was, I never heard of that band, or I never heard of that singer. And there's plenty to choose from. I mean, not to keep pumping Detroit's horn here, but yeah, there's so many great, I would love the idea of doing like an all Detroit covers album, really, because there's no end to the amount of great songs that have come out of here.
And folks, I will give the ordering details at the end of this show, but i94recordings.com is the place you need to check out to get a hold of Ricky and Brian's new singles. And I do recall that back in the day, I94 released a couple of killer comps called Drunk on Rock, which I still play regularly. Some great bands on those two albums, including, and get a load of some of these great bands, Ricky, Dimitri Monroe and the Naked Flames, Texas Terry, Freddie Lynx, Jeff Dahl, Dime Store Halos, Kevin Kay, The Dragons, Nashville Pussy, The Bell Rays, Candy Snatchers, Sinisters, and the B-Movie Rats, to name just a few. Jim did a wonderful job on those comps, and the good news is, as I recently discovered, he still has copies of those albums for sale, which is pretty cool. So I encourage you to check out i94recordings.com when you're done with this show.
Oh yeah, there you go. that was a good scene, man. That late '90s scene. That I don't know anyone really put a catchphrase on it. We kind of call it the punk, punk rock and roll, or obviously, some people call it the action rock. Thanks to the Helicopters, but we were all fortunate to be in that was a good fucking era in there.
Oh yeah,
in the late
yeah.
90s, you know.
Yeah.
And it was really kicking. I think the thing was what didn't take it, you know, maybe everybody to a huge level was just we didn't have that one superstar band. You know, if there was a superstar band, I think a lot of our bands might have gone a little bit over the underground, you know. But we all missed it by a bit because we all know what comes next, and that was the White Stripes and the garage rock movement that came kind of shortly after that. And but that's why I feel like, you know, there's so many great bands in that era. We were a part of that, but that's why it just never, I think, got a bigger exposure. It just needed that one big superstar band, kind of, you know.
Ricky, let's give some of our listeners here in Australia a brief history lesson, and I will start with a short bio online which states Ricky Rat co-founded the Trash Brats along with Brian Oblivion in 1987. Over the course of 15 years, the Brats toured endlessly, sharing the stages with the likes of Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Johnny Thunders, Motorhead, Teenage Head, Marky Ramone, Sylvain, and even unlikely pairings like the Goo Goo Dolls and Kid Rock. They released 5 full-length albums, several singles, and appeared on numerous compilations around the world. Now, an obvious question for me after reading that is, how did your friendship with Brian start? I believe you met in junior high in the late 70s, correct?
Yes, we met 7th grade, 1979.
So you and Brian formed a band called Asylum. That turned into a 3-piece outfit called Brat around 84, which ultimately would morph into the Trash Brats. Is that correct? Have I got that timeline correct? Yep.
You got it exactly correct. Asylum was our very, very first teenage band that basically within a year, it kind of morphed into Brat, which was already like the idea of Trash Brats. So, you know, that was by like summer of 84, as far back as that was, that we had this idea for kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of a, you know, a glam punk type of band, you know, and first it was mostly covers and stuff. We weren't really, you know, couldn't really write too many what we felt good originals yet, but we were kind of a 3-piece and morphed into the Brats by early 87 when Tony joined up. And and that took us to the end all the way to 2002 when we broke up.
In 1986, Brat made an appearance on a local compilation called It Came From The Garage, performing an early recording titled Slap Happy. But also on that comp is another local band named Just Born, who had a song on there called Teen Suicide Story. Just Born featured one Tony Romeo. He and that song both become part of the Trash Brat story, don't they?
Yes, very correct. That shows you the same circles we were playing in at that time. We were all, when that comp came out, we were all barely out of high school, and we were playing in the same circles. And Brat was a 3-piece band because we couldn't find other people that really fit what we wanted to do. So me and Brian were actually both playing guitar, both playing bass, and both singing. We would kind of share it with a drummer. We went through various drummers. Tony was a very great front person with Just Born. He had the same attitude that the Brats had. You know, he wasn't afraid to like wear makeup and dresses in front of the punk crowd and, you know, piss people off, and just had the attitude. Just Born had great songs. And so what happened was we kind of knew Brat as a 3-piece was boring, but I think we didn't really know where we were going with it yet. And Just Born broke up, and Tony got in touch with us, and first he asked if we were looking for a singer. But at that point, me and Brian had kind of realized that, you know, Brian was the best singer of us, you know, too. And we thought, maybe you should be a singer, and you know, I'll just keep playing guitar. We'll find a bass player. And so that's what happened with Tony. We were like, well, we don't need a singer, but you know, can you play? Do you by some chance play guitar or bass? He goes, I know a couple chords on guitar, and I'm like, I'll show you how to play. You know, I'll show you on the bass. So we used to jokingly call him like the Sid Vicious of the band, because it was literally like sat down with him. You know, he didn't know notes yet, so it was like, just, you know, put your finger here, put your finger there, do this. Okay. And he caught on, you know, he's talented. So he caught on, and boom, he was in the band. So it was totally more on like attitude and image and the whole thing more than like how technical he was. And that's the way we always felt as a band was, you know, because it's one thing, there's a million technical musicians out there, but to get the proper rock and roll gang, you know, together, it's the attitude, you know, and you all got to kind of fit in together. So that's kind of how that's how it happened. We're literally like, we were playing our first shows with him. He didn't play the bass that well at all. He didn't really know it yet, but he got it.
Well, there was a self-released cassette, also known as the Pink Tape, released in 1987. Demo cassettes, that was how it was done back then, kids. And then 3 years later, there was the debut album on local label Force Majeure. I imagine that must have been an exciting time. I mean, you'd grown up as a music fan buying records and cassettes, and then after a lot of hard work, you get to slot your own album in the car cassette player and crank it up. Don't Want to Dance, Bubblegum Girl, Gas Boy. If you drift back to 1990, how was the feeling within the band at that time? I mean, exciting times, great memories, right?
Yeah, because like I was saying, 1987 when Tony joined, we pretty much had most of what would be called the Pink Tape recorded.
Right.
Like, you know, full length, kind of our own first demo album. And yeah, we sat there and, you know, we basically, you know, burned those tapes ourselves and put the stickers on them and had the little covers, you know, made. They were pink. That's why it became called the Pink Tape. Folded them, put them together. And, you know, we started sending them out to, you know, Maximum Rock and Roll and Flipside and all the underground magazines of the day. And that's what led to our name getting around, because that was the days where people really looked to those zines. And then we'd get these orders in the mail. It was neat. Like, here's some money. You know, I want your tape, or I want a T-shirt. And that's how our name first started spreading. And it only took about a year and a half in the Detroit scene that we built up like our own crowd. Because first it was, you know, the punks hated us because we didn't look right or sound, you know. And, you know, it was mostly hardcore at that time, too. There wasn't a lot of 77 punk or glam punk or whatever. Then, okay, whatever, you know, fine, go try play with the glam metal band. Well, those crowds hated us, too, because we were, you know, too punk or too weird for them. So first it was, you know, shows with, you know, your couple close friends, some girlfriends, whatever, 10 people, 20 people. And then it was, you know, 40 people. Then it was 50 people. Then we were packing the clubs. And then we had our own following. And so, yeah, for the first few years, we were going off really, the only recording we had was that Pink Tape. And we advanced beyond that, where we had, you know, what we felt were better songs. And then, you know, we started recording what we consider our debut album that only came out on cassette at the time on Force Majeure. It was supposed to come out on vinyl, I remember, and I think it was, I don't know, lack of funds with the label or something, where it only came out as a tape. And then we had the Some Days Too Late, Don't Want to Dance 7-inch came out right around the same time too. And so, yeah, when that came out, we were filling places like St. Andrews Hall in Detroit, you know, that, you know, holds 1,000 people. And we had huge following, real rabid following, you know, all kinds of just, it was cool because it was like a true gathering of weirdos. Like we said, it was like Rocky Horror Picture Show coming to life. And, but we felt we were doing something right because, you know, you could put on a good show or do this or that, but if you didn't have the songs, then, you know, people ain't going to stick around. So, you know, people were singing the songs and getting really into the songs even before there was recordings of a lot of them, you know, back in those days. And that's when, you know, you had something where you'd be like, this is a new song. Let's start playing this one, like Gas Boy or whatever. And a few shows later, people are like singing the choruses or whatever. It's like, wow, people are really listening. You know, we seem like we're on to something.
You know, Ricky, I asked my brother to select a Trash Brats song, and without hesitation, he said 3873 Marlborough Street, which is lifted off the debut record. For folks who may not be familiar with their Trash Brats history, what's the story behind that song? Well,
that was the first band house, you know, back in the day when bands did that, you know. I'm not saying kids now don't do it, but I think they do it. It's definitely less. But at least I know here in the Detroit area, and I know it wasn't just easy to hear, everyone was trying to make it music. So you're 18, 19, 20, you can really rough it at that age. And obviously rent's going to be cheaper if you put 2, 3, 4 people in a house. So this was the first time me and Brian moved out of our parents' houses, and we ended up moving into this very rough area of Detroit. A friend of ours had this house, and it was a friend of a friend, and he was like, "Oh yeah, well, he's looking for roommates." And at the time, Wiggy, who's in the song, he charged me and Brian only $25 a week. That was it. So basically, I had to come up with $100 a month to live there, which is nothing. So we were Brat at the time, so we weren't even Trash Brats yet. But all the lyrics in the song, it's not poetic license. Brian really just, man, he killed it and captured it with the lyrics in the song, because all the stories and the characters you hear in that song are all true. It's all real. It's it's a true account of what we went through when we lived at that house.
Love it.
So it's always a very personal song, and I like it that other people. It's been a very popular Brat song through the years. So, I don't know if it's the characters or the story itself or what it is, because it's a very personal song to us. But it seems like it's really resonated with people through the years, which is great.
1996's Out of the Closet album, possibly my favourite release. Eaton Crow, Time Don't Want to Tell, Teen Suicide Stories, some really strong material on there. And if I can pull up a quote from my brother, who I think nailed it when reviewing it at the time, saying the overall strength of Out of the Closet lies in the high quality of the songwriting, resulting in catchy, fun, pop-punk anthems. If you think grease paint and glam is all bark and no bite, are you ever in for a surprise? Ricky, that album from memory generated many strong reviews like that at the time of release. Did that generate any major label interest, or should I ask, was there any major label interest at all in the Trash Brats?
There almost never really was.
Right.
Because as you can imagine, our timing, when people think of things in a business sense, they were just looking at the band.
Sure.
And when we were really getting our legs, it was more like, we started in 87. We were really getting our legs in the early 90s. And we all know what happened in the 90s overall in music was, not that we were a glam metal band, but, that became the no-no, because the grunge and alternative came in. So if they saw a guy with, ratted hair or makeup, it's like they wouldn't even listen.
Sure.
It's almost like, well, yeah, that shit's done. Poison's done or whatever. And it's like, well, we're not going to start, dressing grunge like Nirvana or something. That's not us. So that was the battle we had, because that's like when we were really peaking, even like in Detroit. We're getting the biggest crowds. We're at our height. But yeah, we had a manager for a few years, and he got us to basically every label. We were turned down by everybody. I mean, they were just like, yeah, this is, goes to show you they don't really listen to the music either, I guess. They went for the whole package, and so it was like we were too glam or we were too flashy or whatever. And so, the closest we ever came to anything bigger was the label Restless, which was a division of Enigma. And it was around the time that there was that Zeros band, not the punk band Zeros, but the purple-haired Zeros from Hollywood had signed, and they had an album coming out, and they were, at that point, they were the biggest band in Hollywood. And the guy who had signed them was friends with our manager, and he really liked us, and he kind of got it. He got the songs, he got the whole thing, because Purple-haired Zeros were similar in that sense, more like Ramones kind of songs and flashy glam image and all that. But what didn't help it was the Zeros album came out, and the Zeros album, I guess, just, it basically tanked. But they were up against the same wall like we were, where you're talking 92, 93, 94. Everyone wants to see a band that looks more like a Pearl Jam or a Alice in Chains or whatever. So, yeah, we were up against the wall. It was bad timing.
Well, out of curiosity, was Out of the Closet or possibly American Revolution the most commercially successful for the band? I guess I'm meaning units sold.
It's hard to tell, because all of our albums were on such small labels.
Right.
I think we were selling more as we went along. I think probably just as a natural thing, because we had the following. But I could definitely feel by American Disaster that, we were limping, along, besides inner turmoil in the band and people getting burnt out, that we tried to do it for so many years. And then it wasn't we were actually losing our crowd more than gaining a crowd. Even at home, everything was changing. And so that album especially, it's hard to tell really what was going on because we felt it was a strong album.
Mm-hmm.
But it was maybe just time for the band. Like we knew it, like, okay, we don't want to keep limping along. And, but I don't know. I feel like we went out with a bang, I guess, because I didn't think it was a bad record or anything. But usually, I guess in most Trash Brats fan circles, they seem to mention all the other albums more so than American Disaster. But it's always nice that everybody has their favorite, and that always, that's good to hear.
I found a piece online which Rick Ruiner wrote back in 2010 at retrokimmer.com, which I think summed the Trash Brats up quite well, and I quote, "They worked tirelessly, touring and scraping. They deserved better recognition and rewards if hard work actually counted. While it is true the boys had a good run as fashionable, gender-bending delinquents, their ability to write and quite skillfully play great rock and roll was unfortunately overlooked by some. Too punk for rock and too rock for punk."
That's Rick, man. Yeah. Rick is quite the guy in himself too,
yeah.
Man. And I remember when he wrote that,
Accurate.
I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah. Before we move away from the Trash Brats, I do wish to name a couple of past gigs, which I hope you can elaborate on. I remember you telling me about a run of Joan Jett supports you guys did. There was a big hometown crowd of 10,000 odd people, and I recall you sharing a story about getting high with Joan in the Trash Brats beat up van. Cool stories.
Yeah. We ended up that was like our biggest hometown show we really ever got to do. Place are called Pine Knob, which is the outdoor summer music amphitheater, and we had done like a small little Midwest tour with Joan and her band like a year or two prior, and what actually led to us getting on this big hometown show, I think it was like a return favor, because what you were saying about the story about us getting high with Joan in the van. What happened was she ended up leaving her purse in our van. We didn't know it. It's a good story. And so we come home after that tour, and then her management called and said, "Oh yes, Joan misplaced her purse, and she's trying to backtrack a bit." She said she was in the van with you guys, and we said, "Okay, we didn't see anything in there." And of course, the van was a mess. We don't see anything, but if we come across it, we'll let you know. And of course, these are the days for cell phones and all that too.
Sure.
So that following weekend, we were cleaning out the van, getting ready to do another run of shows, and one of the guys, I can't remember who, comes walking into the house like, "Look at this," and they're holding like this girl's purse. It turned out to be Joan's purse. So we kind of get to be the heroes, I guess, because we did the right thing. Of course, it's not like, "Oh yeah, let's steal the money," or "Let's do this," or like that. It was like we called right away, and they said, "Okay, cool, we'll pay to FedEx it over."
Cool.
And so then we saw they were coming like the next summer or whatever. It was a July 4th gig, hometown, and we were kind of like, "Yeah, we should call over there, and just see if they could somehow throw us on there," which they did, which was awesome. Because that's one of those gigs in your life where your family and everyone thinks you really made it. Even if it's for one night, they're like, "Holy crap, you're playing this place that you grew up seeing all your, favorite concerts and stuff like that. Now you get to play on that stage." So, we'll always be grateful to Joan and the gang for that one. That was a good one.
There was a Motorhead support as well, was there not, for the Trash Brats?
Yes. We played this really fun festival called the Expo of the Extreme with them in Chicago, and Texas Terry was also on that. Actually,
Great.
They totally killed it too, and it was one of these all day kind of things, and they had all kinds of whatever, metal, glam, goth, combination. And then the final bands of the night, I always remember it was quite the combination. It was Texas Terry, Trash Brats, Hatebreed, Dropkick Murphys, and Motorhead.
Wow, that's a motley crew.
Yeah, we definitely got a little bit of shit from the crowd that night, which was expected, though. That was those days where you could still get shit, but that always, we always, to us, that just made it fun when we had people fucking with us.
Well, one of the most volatile crowds you played before, And I know you've told this story before, but I'm sure most Australian audiences won't know. It was in 1995, opening up for Kid Rock at the State Theatre in Detroit. All the mayhem is on YouTube for those wishing to check out the hatred, the fists, the spit, and all the rock and roll fury. Ricky, as I said, some of our listeners may not be familiar with this now infamous gig. Did Kid Rock choose you as a support? And can you relive that evening for us for a little bit?
Yes. And this was just to let people know too, like if some people if they're not familiar with Kid Rock's, entire career, he wasn't always like the long-haired, rock, classic rock, whatever, Bob Seger, country rock guy. He was a straight up, white kid rapper. And, he came around where we were all on some bills together where it'd be like all these Detroit punk bands and he would be on there where like, I can't remember who was kind of like pushing for him, whatever, but he had a lot of guts because he'd come out and he was rapping to just pre-recorded music. And so we were all kind of in the same circle. And then he just started evolving where, he got away from just whatever straight up rap stuff and going into the rock stuff. And of course he caught the proper wave that like mid to late 90s, the rap metal or whatever. I mean, he caught it perfectly to where, it turned him into a superstar. But that when we opened for him, and yes, it was, he asked us to open for him. He wasn't really a rocker yet. So that's why, anyone that looks up that video on YouTube will see it's not like older rocker crowd. It's a bunch of angry white males that are like, what are these guys doing? What are these freaks here? And, we thought, we're going to get some resistance at this one. But then we also looked at like, okay, it's an all ages show. Maybe we went over some new kids or whatever, blah, 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 because it's a sold out show. But, he was huge here before he was known anywhere else. And, I guess, people can look up the video, but, they basically did everything in their power to, knock us off that stage. I mean, they threw everything they could at us. We just went back and forth with them. They're spitting on us. We're spitting on them. They're throwing beers at us. We're throwing beers back. And we made it through our whole set because no one's ever knocked us off a stage.
Love it.
And luckily, a friend of ours happened to be there where he was like, hey, can I video the show? And he videoed it right from on stage. So again, anyone can look this up on YouTube. It's a great angle because you got, up close where he's showing the angle of us playing and then the angle of the crowd, like going back and forth, like a boxing match.
Yeah.
And it was as bad as it looks. But I mean, we were used to that. I mean, we've dealt with that. So we really weren't threatened by it because we're like, these kids ain't really going to do anything to us. They think they're badass and they're tough, but it's like, you could throw shit at you, as much as you want. We're up here. We're going to play our show. We're getting paid. And, it was, and now it's become kind of like a legendary, story or show, show in Brat history.
After giving it a fair shake, Ricky, for 15 years, the Trash Brats called it quits. 15 years is a long time. And although you were busy playing out with Kevin, how was your mindset back then? Were you excited about the next chapter or, I don't know, somewhat jaded?
I was pretty jaded. And I guess the equivalent feeling would be getting out of a marriage or a relationship where, you couldn't hold on anymore. It was too dysfunctional. But then you didn't want to let it go because you'd be like, man, I put all this time and effort into it.
Yeah.
So for the first little bit, as much as I love to play music, I was devastated. I was just burnt and done with it. And then, didn't want to even almost know what was going on, in music. Like, didn't want to hear from people like, oh, this band's huge or this band's making it good or whatever. And it's, back to, working some shit day job and being kind of bitter about things. And then, that's where Kevin, old pal Kevin really pulled me out of that funk because I started touring with him in Europe on a consistent basis. And that kind of brought me back to life at that point because for a couple of years, I almost, I wasn't inspired to, start a solo career or to really seek things out. I was kind of just, did a tour with Texas Terry and a U.S. tour, and that was cool. But then it was, Kevin's the one who kind of pulled me out of that. And then, as you know, we've been all over the place together. So we had put miles on before, of course, including Japan and all that. But then we really turned it on. And, so we're like old brothers too. We're always able to tour well together, and we're a good combination together. So that kind of brought me back to life. And then finally later on, in the 2000s there, it's like, finally got into like happy songs or, start the solo thing or whatever. I never really wanted to, but it was like, well, if I don't do it, then, the songs ain't going to come out. But I preferred really playing guitar in a band, singing backing vocals or maybe singing one lead, but I really didn't want to be that front person. It's kind of scary to go out front, you're singing lead, you're the guitar guy, you're the main dude. And it's like, whoa, that's a lot.
Well, just, I don't want to get too off track, but from memory in I think 2017, you find yourself in Nashville as part of the reformed Dead Boys, re-recording the Young, Loud and Snotty album. You've had a lot of high points in your music career, but I reckon that's got to be right up there. And I guess, how did you land that gig in the Dead Boys, and was partnering Cheetah on guitar ever an option?
Well, the way that came together was me and Cheetah have been friends since, I can't remember when we first met, late 90s maybe. And so we were friends, and the Brats had opened for Cheetah, some Cheetah solo shows. And then in more recent years, Ricky Rat Pack, we also played with Cheetah. And it was Jason, Cheetah's other guitar player, that kind of put this all in motion, because Jason used to be in a band called Swamp Ass from Illinois. And we did some shows together, Trash Brats.
Was he in the Bulimics as well? Was he in the Bulimics?
And he was in the Bulimics, yep, he was in the Bulimics as well. So that was when I first met Jason, and I guess it would have been, I don't know, maybe 2000 or something, 99, somewhere in there. So when, he was playing with Cheetah, it was cool because, we'd cross paths and play shows together, and I was like, oh, Jason's also with Cheetah. Cool. So what happened was, the 40th anniversary of Young, Loud and Snotty came up, and Cheetah Chrome Band, or whatever you want to call it, had been, touring pretty consistently for a few years. They decided they were going to do something special for it. And from my understanding, it was never really planned that it was going to fall back as like a Dead Boys thing, or it was almost like they were going to maybe do the record and have guests play. It was like all these different things. So they got Johnny Blitz on board, and that's when it, really was like, okay, I guess picked up steam. And then they had these Midwest shows and these Canadian shows where their bass player was unable to do it. I think it was his wife had recently gotten pregnant, so he couldn't really tour. So I just got this call one day, and it was from Jason, and he said, I know you're a guitar player, and you're a great guitar player or whatever, but we need a bass player for these shows. Is this something, you'd be interested in? I'm like, well, hell yeah. You don't have to ask me twice. This sounds great.
Sure.
Play with Cheetah in Blitz and, and this will be great. And basically went out with them for that series of dates. And it was, when I went out with them, I learned like, okay, here's the plan. They want to call it Dead Boys, and they want to do this reissue of the record, and they want this, that. And I was basically asked to join. And it was like, well, geez, that's a hard one to say no to. So it kind of just came rushing together fast. It was like, oh, okay. Because first I thought I was filling in some shows. And I thought, well, this is cool. Maybe I'll do some more shows. And then next thing it's like, well, it's going to be called Dead Boys, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. And it was like, yeah, man, if you want me on board, like she pulled me aside and said, you wanted me to be a part of it. So I was into it, and I was like, hell yeah. So that's how that went.
Well, that lineup, by the way, I think, with yourself and Jason on guitar and Jake on vocals, every inch the real rock and roll deal. And from all accounts, from what I read online, you not only honoured the legacy of that band, but you rewrote another chapter. Not easy to do. Yes,
thank you. I mean, it was hard, as you can imagine. Blitz knew they're going to take shit, for calling. And then we're in the crossfires being like the new guys that are just like fans, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I still stand by it to this day that all three of us showed the proper respect to it. We never once, acted like we were something more than what it was. And we knew it was an uphill battle, but then we went out again like road dogs, man, and fucking pounded it out there.
Yeah.
Pounded it out there.
UK dates as well in early 2018.
Yeah, and that was great. Those were all amazing too. I mean, there's so many memorable shows, and it was cool to feel that vibe of like that we were doing the right thing. Because even the old timers who are the first ones to have their arms crossed and be like, "This ain't the Dead Boy." Upset. We're going like, "Holy shit, that was good!" And then the kids are like happy because that's what that you're not going to see the original Dead Boys. These is you're lucky you see a couple of the guys. Just like if someone goes to see Marky Ramone right now, it's like that you're going to get. So the younger generation that they didn't seem to think about was a fake or a poser thing to do because they were like out there, and I felt that we were delivering it right. If we were delivering it in a bad way, like, yes, it's a joke. It's a bad cover band, but we knew it. Like, be on stage with someone like Jake every night was like you could ask for a better person that had to be in that position because he knew what position he was in. He wasn't trying to replace Stiv or be Stiv. It was a total respect thing. And then when you watch videos, I feel like he's really got his own thing. Like he reminds me of like Iggy and Michael Monroe. He's got these other things he does that to me it's not Stiv-like at all. But then some of the naysayers, of course, might see a picture and say, "Oh, look at him with his black hair, and he dresses like this. He's a Stiv clone." It's like, no, not at all. He respectfully did it the way it was supposed to be done, but he also was himself. And I think live people saw that. They saw the whole band was like, it's not just these studio guys, or it's not just people phoning it in. It was like, no, man, this is like as we said, like a real deal rock and roll gang.
Rewriting
man.
another chapter.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of messy, weird shit happen on those tours. I mean, there was a lot of crazy shit. It was definitely not like, the boring old rock band. It was like, there was a couple of shows where we went off the stage and we're fighting with people. And I mean, I was like, geez, I haven't had, this is like the old days.
Wow.
And again, it was not like we had this huge road crew or, we were being pampered or anything. It's like, I mean, we were busting our asses out there for it too,
You've toured Europe quite a few times over the years, most notably with the Kevin K Band. What are some of your favorite European cities to play?
Oh man, there's so many. I mean, Berlin is always fantastic. I mean, Wild at Heart there is like our home bar there, and so many great memories, so many great shows there. So many places in France, really, because that's where Kevin got to be based because, he ended up with where his backing band was basically all French guys. And so even when I took Jack, his old guitar player's spot, touring, because I guess Jack didn't want to tour as much or whatever, it was like those first tours, all of a sudden it was boom, all these places in France. I go, wow, this is interesting. I've never been to these places. And yeah, I mean, the city Rennes with Mondo Bizarro, which was maybe the best rock and roll bar in all of France. And plus that city just has real rock and rollers there. And what we learned over the years, there's something kind of up there in the north there in France that's a special thing. But then you go into the south of France too, and there's great places. And then you keep going south, there you go. And then you're in Italy and Spain, and Madrid is always, Barcelona, those cities are great. I mean, there's just so many, where to me, when we're over there playing, I mean, it's a joy because it's never like, oh, this city or this, country or it's going to suck. It's a total joy because people seem to really appreciate the real rock and roll over there a lot more than the States, it seems.
We could talk all day about Kevin Kay, a guy who's been a part of my rock and roll world and especially that of my brother. But today it's all about Ricky Rat, and I would like to know how and when your paths crossed with Kevin. Both the Road Vultures and Trash Brats were on Circumstantial Records. Was that the link?
Yep. So our old friend there, Larry G, as we call him, Larry Germack, this was actually that was part of the connection, and I guess it was kind of also that whole European connection.
Yeah.
Because what happened was this really great old punk scene in Germany, which of course was in German, so those who can't, read German never really could read it, but it looked great. Our old friend Ralph Reelshock did this great zine called The Third Generation Nation.
Yeah.
And in the same issue, there was an issue where the Road Vultures were on cover with a really nice article on them, and then there was a really nice extensive article on the Trash Brats. And Larry Germack got a hold of this, and this was right around the same time. I had some friends back here in Detroit and all the underground stuff, where someone had made a cassette copy for me where I forgot the one album. My friend Brad Harlick, actually. Hi, Brad. One side, I can't remember what the one album was, but the other one was Road Vultures Fired Up. So this was kind of almost at the same time too, like, oh wow, there's this New York band. Wow, I've never heard of this band. This band is cool. Then got the call from Larry Germack. It's like, yeah, I do this label Circumstantial and Road Vultures, and it's kind of like, yeah, man, I heard of the Road Vultures, and yeah, you guys seem cool, and it all came that connected of us being, written up in the same zine at the time. And he was like, yeah, maybe we could do some shows together or whatever. And then that's how it started. Road Vultures were doing some shows where they were in like Cleveland and Pittsburgh and whatnot. And I said, yeah, man, I'll set you guys up a show in Detroit. And that would be early 1995. And that's when it started. And then we were all like a big family. And then that led to Larry putting out of the Closet on Circumstantial, and a lot of shows together with Kevin K. Band and Trash Brats. And then obviously, me and Tony from Trash Brats playing with Kevin, and me playing. It's been like a family ever since.
The few shows I saw with you and Tony backing up Kevin were great, and I think you both gave Kevin a lot of extra grunt. What is it, that musical connection, that chemistry that appears when you perform with Kevin? As musicians, you both seem to complement each other very well.
Yeah, I think it's obviously we have it goes without saying that we have a lot of the same musical background, of course, but it's almost like a New York meets Detroit thing too. Mm-hmm. And we both come from like true, it sounds cliche, but true blue collar, working class, back type of backgrounds where that grittiness comes out. And then obviously it's just going to be different. I mean, it's just like saying, the way, in New York, Johnny Thunders plays guitar versus say, Fred Sonic Smith from MC5, where it's all rock and roll, but it's still, from different, that's the best way I could think of it, because we're all like in the same mold, but then it's still so different, but then it's so cool because when it comes together, it's like you said, it complements all sides, which I think, it makes me want to play and sing better. I think it makes Kevin want to play and sing better. It just pulls stuff out of one another.
Ricky, I know that you mentioned to me recently that you were in Chicago. Can you tell us about some future plans? Are you working on an upcoming album?
Yep, actually, shortly after I finished that single last December, me and Joe and Laura from the Rat Pack, we went back there only a couple months later, February, March, and started chipping away on a whole new record. And I was just there putting some finishing touches on some backing vocals and stuff. And now it just needs to be mixed. So it's basically finished other than the mixing process. And got some really cool guests on this record too. Again, like Jimmy Bones is playing songs again. And I had my good friend Brad Elvis, who plays drums in Romantics. And he's also in this great band Handcuffs with his wife Chloe. And Brad and Chloe both came out and they did some backing vocals and some percussion and stuff like that. So, I was really grateful to have some nice added sparkle from some of my very talented friends. And the album's going to be called Ghosts of Isolation. which is obviously kind of a little reference to some of the some of the weird time we went through. And it's 10 songs, and it's going to be coming out on a U.S. label called Sioux City Records, which is a new label that a friend started. That originally, what he does is he makes guitar pedals and things like that. He's more on the gear end, but he started up a label, doing some releases from the good rock and roll stuff that like we all like. Like he just did a record for Richard Bacchus from Degeneration, and which is a great record. I highly suggest everybody listening go check that out. It's been out maybe a few months, so I know I'm going to be in good company at this label again with some good, the real rockers.
Do you have a tentative release date for the new album?
It's definitely going to be mixed and finished by the end of the year. But now the problem is the trussing plants are backed up more than ever.
Yeah.
They're already getting backed up because vinyl came back in, which is a beautiful thing. But things got backed up, and now with COVID and then supplies and blah blah blah. So it probably is not going to really come out until it's going to probably not till be like summer of next year. It's probably going to be I was going to say 6 months, maybe 6 months from the beginning of the year. But, I'm not sure, maybe the approach now with a lot of these releases might be to throw them up into the digital world, the streaming world, so people at least have them. And then, the record comes out when the record comes out, because it's ridiculous how backed up stuff is. So kind of at the mercy of that. And that gets hard for, I guess, on the band's end, because, by that time you're like, oh, this is my new album. It's like you're already kind of on some new stuff, but that's just the way the pressing plants are right now. Some of them are even backed up further than that, where they're getting close to where it's almost a year. You could turn something in, it's going to be 10 months or whatever. So
I think
it's going to be a little bit on that, but
I do believe that there is an upcoming Trash Brats documentary in the works titled Downtown Nowhere. What's the latest with that?
Our friends who are in charge of putting that together were just in Detroit doing another series of interviews and filming people, and so they're still working on it. And, it's got a lot of work to go yet, but I think it's going to come out fantastic. Because they really understand the whole vibe of the band and just everything about the band. And I think the deeper they're digging into stuff here, I think that probably the more interesting it's getting, because they're getting a lot of good stories and things from people, and lots of old videos, and no hurry on it, because obviously we want them to capture the story, in the right way, the best way or whatever, because, they need to allow, this is the story, it's kind of like writing a book about your life or whatever. And I guarantee people won't be bored. I know they're going to get it together right, and they have, between all the footage and the characters and the story and just everything about, it, I think in the end, it could be one of those documentaries where maybe it will turn people on to the music. They might see a trailer or a clip and go, I've never heard of this band, but what the hell is this?
Yeah, that's a wonderful thing,
that
though.
Happened. Yeah, it's kind of happened with that band Death from Detroit, that heavy metal band Anvil. That one was really good. It's sometimes you can take an underground band and really put them in front of a lot of people, where people, I never heard of this band, but geez, this is a pretty wild story.
Yeah, I really hope it blows up and gets, wide exposure. It's very deserving of that.
Well, thank you. Like I said, no matter what, it's going to be, it's definitely going to be a cool thing to have out there.
Yeah.
And I think, I think people will be very entertained by it. And I'm seeing kind of getting close to final clips, but I mean, just the stuff they're putting together with it, it's going to be quite the story.
Good stuff. Mate, we should start to finish up. It's been great to catch up with you. Congratulations on the new single. It's a great release. And, of course, your collaboration last year with Kevin Kay on the Party Store album was just great as well. Some fantastic material on that record too. Keep on doing what you do, my friend. Many of us out there dig your brand of rock and roll, and what you do, long may it continue.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate you guys still hold the torch too. You know, we're all like these rock and roll soldiers together.
Yeah. Look, before we get out of here, every guest on our show gets to choose a song by an Australian band, something which is significant to you. What would you like to choose and why?
Whoa, wow. Oh, man. Well, you know what? Because, God damn it, man. I mean, you guys know it. You guys have a rock and roll history to be proud of. I mean, for sure. But all of a sudden, what just popped in my mind, maybe because I was blasting the other day, I'm going to go with the Angels.
Great.
And how about Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again?
Lovely. Let's close out with that. Wonderful to chat with you, Ricky. Good luck for the remainder of the year.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, great to catch up.
It's been great talking with you, catching up again, and appreciate you having me on. And we'll have to catch up more again soon.
For Ricky Rat, and going back to 1976, that was, of course, the Angels with their debut single, Am I Ever Going to See Your Face Again? So great to catch up with Ricky, a guy who's long been on our rock and roll radar, and with good reason. Astute followers of the Grey Brothers will know that back in 1998, we headed to Japan to hang out with the Kevin Kay Band, who were touring there at the time. That lineup featured Ricky and Tony from the Trash Brats, who, as I said in the interview, really gave Kevin some extra firepower, and those gigs are some of my fondest rock and roll memories. If you are not familiar with the Trash Brats and their wonderful rock and roll legacy, after this show is finished, go search them out, and you can consider that your rock and roll homework. I do recall reading somewhere a long time back that in some ways the Trash Brats suffered similar blows as early Twisted Sister. Their look and image detracted from the amazing songs they were belting out, and like many other great rock and roll outfits, some were listening with their eyes and not their ears. However, I cannot wait to see the Trash Brats documentary when it's released, titled Downtown Nowhere, and I really hope that it generates a new interest in this band. They really are deserving of that. It goes without saying that if you dug some of the material which we aired on this show, I encourage you to purchase it and add it to your collection. I-94 Recordings have released the singles by Ricky Rat and Brian McCarty, and these can be ordered by visiting i-94recordings.com. Jim's also got the Trash Brats self-titled album on vinyl for sale, among many other cool releases. Once again, i-94recordings.com is the place you need to visit. You can find Ricky Rat online via social media. Facebook.com/Ricky Rat Detroit is how you do it. And please be sure to tell him we sent you. Before we close out, I do, of course, need to make mention of the 7-inch single which Ricky Rat and Kevin Kay released a few months back on our old resurrected label, Vicious Kitten Records. It's called Identity Crisis, which is a killer song taken from Kevin and Ricky's album from last year titled Party Store. If you live in Australia, head to vicouskittenrecords.com and my brother will get one to your door, and you will be helping to keep cool rock and roll alive. Folks, it is time to get out of here. You can hear us online at places like iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Please visit our online home at australianrockshow.com. There you can access all of the previous episodes. You can learn more about the Rockin' and Rollin' Grey Brothers, and you can order an Australian Rock Show t-shirt there as well. Lots of sizes in stock. All designs feature the distinguishable Flying V Southern Cross logo. Get in early and order one for Christmas, which is just around the corner. We are on social media, but I am a bit of a Luddite, so by far the most effective way to reach us is via email, australianrockshow@gmail.com. Please keep your messages coming in. We read each and every one of them. Going to close this one out with one of my favourite Trash Brats tunes. And as you all probably know by now, I am a music fan who takes note of song lyrics. And that was something which the Trash Brats excelled at. Many songs were filled with clever lyrics, including this one, which is lifted off their American Disaster record from 2001. I guess I need another strategy. I guess I need another opening line. Indeed. Crank the volume right about now. Here are the Trash Brats with the glorious Must Be the Cocaine. Until next time, this is Dennis. Out.